Rome's earliest political life began under kings, but in 509 BCE, the Romans cast aside their final monarch and forged an entirely new system, the Roman Republic. This government endured for nearly 5 centuries, from 509 to 27 BCE. Yet when we call it a republic, we should not imagine a pure democracy. Instead, the Roman Republic was a carefully blended constitution, part democratic in its assemblies, part aristocratic in its senate, and part monarchical through its elected executives. In Greek terms, Rome combined elements resembling the basileus or archon, a council of elders, and a popular assembly. This synthesis became the model for later classical republics. At the heart of Rome's political machinery stood the Centuriate Assembly, or Comitia Centuriata, the primary legislative body of the Republic. It was made up of Roman citizens who also served as soldiers, but its voting structure was anything but egalitarian. Citizens were divided into centuries, each comprising roughly 100 men. Within each century, a majority vote determined how that century would cast its single ballot. The centuries themselves were arranged by wealth, based on how much military equipment a man could afford. The system was starkly hierarchical. The wealthiest Romans supplied 18 cavalry centuries and 80 infantry centuries, while the next class provided 40 more. At the bottom, all of Rome's poorest citizens collectively formed just 1 infantry century. This meant that the richest citizens controlled 98 votes, the next wealthiest 40, and the entire mass of the poor only 1. Through this system, political power remained firmly anchored in the upper classes. Executive authority lay in the hands of 2 annually elected consuls, chosen by the Centuriate Assembly. These men served as administrators in times of peace and commanders-in-chief during war. When leading armies in the field, each consul could act independently, but at home they were required to act jointly. If one consul objected, no action could be taken. Their importance was so great that Romans named each year after the consuls who served it. The Senate stood as another pillar of the Republic, comparable to Sparta's Gerousia. The very word Senate comes from senex, meaning old man. Originating as an advisory body to Rome's kings, it persisted through both the Republic and the Empire, composed of Rome's leading statesmen. Senators were selected by the censors, who were themselves senators, and membership required a man to have held a magistracy. Senators were expected to embody Rome's highest virtues: virtus, courage; pietas, duty; and gravitas, seriousness. Over time, the Senate oversaw finances, major criminal investigations, and eventually foreign and provincial policy. Like the Greek polis, early Rome was sharply divided by class. The patricians, an elite hereditary aristocracy, controlled all political power. They wrote the laws and ensured that privileges remained in their own hands. Some of these laws were severe. A debtor unable to repay a loan might be sold, along with his family, into slavery. The rest of the population, the plebeians, lacked these privileges. Although the origins of the 2 classes remain uncertain, their statuses became hereditary very early. A wealthy plebeian was still a plebeian. A destitute patrician remained a patrician. Recognizing the injustices they faced, the plebeians organized to challenge the existing system. Their efforts ushered in a long period of social and political conflict known as the Struggle of the Orders. In 471 BCE, the plebeians established their own political body, the Plebeian Council, to represent their interests. This assembly elected 10 tribunes whose sacred duty was to protect plebeians from abuses by patrician officials. The council could also pass resolutions known as plebiscites. Over the next 2 centuries, the plebeians gradually secured greater rights. In 450 BCE, the laws of Rome were codified into the 12 tables, formally recognizing that all free citizens possessed rights and duties. That same year, tribunes gained the power to forbid any governmental action harmful to a plebeian. In 366 BCE, a plebeian was elected consul for the first time, and thereafter one of the consulships was typically reserved for a plebeian. By 287 BCE, the Centuriate Assembly ruled that plebiscites had the full force of law, a decision that traditionally marks the end of the struggle of the orders. Even as other offices opened to citizens of all classes, the office of tribune remained exclusively plebeian. By around 250 BCE, only plebeians could hold it. Tribunes wielded an extraordinary power: the veto. If even one tribune opposed an action proposed by a consul or magistrate, he could simply declare, "Veto, I forbid." This authority made the tribunes vital protectors of the common people and a powerful counterweight to the influence of the aristocracy. Through these institutions and conflicts, Rome shaped a political system that balanced competing interests, integrated diverse elements of government, and laid the groundwork for centuries of expansion and innovation.